Welcome to our public forum. I'll make a note that our General Manager is ill with a virus, so Mr McCabe will be acting on her behalf this afternoon. I'll remind all present that mobile phones must be switched off before the meeting and that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed. I will remind everybody that there is a 5-minute speaking limit here. At 4 minutes, a bell will go. I'm very strict on that time frame, so if you could please wrap it up in 5 minutes, that'd be wonderful. We'll remind you not to ask any questions of the councillors, and councillors, you may ask the speakers questions, however they do not have to answer you. And I will also add that any speakers, if we could remain on topic, it'll stop me needing to bump you back there. And with that, our first speaker is Mr Mark Webeck, and he's speaking for the recommendation in item 8.13.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Mark Webeck. I'm here in the capacity as Chairman, President of EVA, Exeter Village Association. We give general support to the consolidation of the DCP, but we're also mindful of the fact that the existing Exeter DCP is a good working document, we feel. So in terms of the comment in the papers about ensuring sensitive place-specific guidelines and controls are optimised, we would suggest and recommend that the existing Exeter DCP be a schedule to perhaps the consolidated version. There are just a few drafting issues in the existing Exeter DCP. For example, we have the free flow of traffic along Nowra Road, which of course is nowhere near Exeter, sorry. And there's also a reference to Hoddle Street and Church Street in the Exeter DCP, which obviously needs to be clarified or amended. So we're generally in support of the consolidation, so long as the existing DCP Exeter is kept in place. Our perhaps complaint more is in terms of the implementation of the Exeter DCP to developments from time to time. That's a separate issue, but in terms of overall support, we give it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, do we have any questions? Thank you. Next we have Mr Tristan Ryle, and he's speaking against the recommendation on item 8.13.
Hi, I'm Tristan Ryle from Architecture Republic. I'm a local architect dealing with the current DCP every day in my work for the last 10 years. I'm thoroughly in favour of creating a new single DCP that covers the whole Shire, but has to be done right. The current idea, based on the business paper, seems to be to hire a consultant to consolidate the current mess into a single DCP, which could be done in less than half the time for less than half the money. It's just a proofreading exercise. As the previous speaker said, mentioning Hoddle Street in the Exeter DCP, that sort of thing is just all through it. But that would be a missed opportunity, as we need an entirely new DCP. Consolidating rubbish will just get us consolidated rubbish. Doing a new DCP needs far more time and consultation than what's being proposed. The current DCP is the most complex, incoherent and out-of-date DCP in the 21 councils across 3 states that I work in. Even the City of Sydney has a simpler DCP, despite having 5 times the population and covering everything from skyscrapers to Georgian terraces to the Opera House. Glaring examples from the current mess include the Moss Vale Enterprise Corridor DCP, which references a set of obsolete zones and a set of obsolete and repealed state legislation, leaving the door open to Plasrefine's creative interpretation of the rules. That ambiguity was just a wide open door for them to make up their own interpretations there. The vegetation management controls, which are in almost every DCP, town and rural, reference state legislation that was repealed in 2016, making them completely obsolete with no one sure what the rules are for removing or pruning a tree, and basically leaving that up to the whims of the council officer on the day. That said, it's not at all clear what brief has been given to this consultant or how they were selected or what their local knowledge is. I don't think they are a local, don't necessarily have to be a local, but you need some local knowledge to write a DCP. Historically, that's the job of the in-house planning staff. There's already been several years of consultation on a new DCP, such as the residential zone study, low res and medium res, and Michael Park's photography competition. Will this be abandoned or included in the new DCP written by this consultant? Even these reviews generally miss the mark with a set of homogenous controls that will create a monotonous urban fabric like we see in Renwick, when everyone agrees the virtue of the current DCPs is that they do treat different towns differently for their different characters. And an example of that homogenous control is a 27-degree roof pitch across all residential buildings, as though there's no flat-roofed or steeper-roofed or mid-century roofs. Good way to make everything look exactly the same. The one clear message I heard during that consultation in 2022, which I attended, was that no one liked Renwick, and the reason they didn't was not any individual building, it was because it all looked the same. Compare this to Yass Valley Council, which is a council I do a lot of work in. It's one of the fastest growing councils in New South Wales and one with a range of historic villages, towns and new estates, just like Wingecarribee. And each of those villages and towns have their own character, just like Wingecarribee. Until last year, they didn't have a DCP. They'd gone 100 or so years without a DCP. Everything was assessed on merit and average DA times were 27 days. That gave the freedom for every village's individual character to flourish without a planner telling them what that character was. Now that they have a DCP, it's a simple, single document for the whole Shire with comprehensive minimum standards and minimal nonsense. It's just the basics. Places like Gundaroo that then have a special character have chapters with additional controls. We need a new DCP and we all need a say on it. Consult the whole community, not just the people who have time to come to council meetings during business hours. Do it once, do it properly, and ditch the current mess. We deserve better than this outsourced rush job.
Thank you. Did the councillors have any questions? Sorry.
Thank you, sir, for coming today and sharing your thoughts. You certainly sound like you know what you're doing. A question. So my understanding is that this is to prepare a comprehensive DCP. Is that your understanding as well?
It is, but it's not. It is, but it's not clear from the brief that's in the business paper, which is all the information I have, whether that's just rolling the existing ones all together into one DCP or whether it's writing a new one or some blend between.
And the other point I'd like to make, your point about local knowledge of a local DCP is very valid. So thank you.
Thank you. We have Danny Kent, on behalf of Richard Gell, is speaking for part of the recommendation in item 8.21. Not here. Okay, we'll move on. We'll loop back round. If we could have Richard Anderson, and he's speaking for the recommendation in item 8.27.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a local civil engineer with CDS and have been asked to speak on behalf of the owners of 267 Bundanoon Road, Exeter, with regards to item 8.27 on the agenda, specifically to the proposed turnaround area to be located on Ringwood Lane, Exeter. I would just like to share the history of this matter up to date from our perspective to provide an understanding as to how we got to this point. We were engaged in conjunction with CJP traffic engineers by the owners of 267 Bundanoon Road to determine suitable access arrangements for the proposed subdivision lots, which would share the existing driveway entry to 267 Bundanoon Road. Prior to approval of the subdivision, this location provided access to 3 existing properties, including the property to be subdivided. The existing access arrangement was problematic and did not meet current council criteria for safe intersection site distances, safe turning movements, and did not allow for any turnaround of any larger vehicles within the intersection area. All 3 vehicle entries were also gated, so any vehicle was unable to utilise existing driveway areas to turn around. To determine a more satisfactory arrangement, road safety audits were carried out on the existing arrangement and subsequently on the proposed arrangement. Speed data was collected to determine the design speed to be adopted for intersection site distances. A suitable location and intersection arrangement was determined from this information in conjunction with CJP traffic engineers and submitted to council with the development application and was refined further during the development assessment process. The application ultimately went to Section 34 in Land Environment Court, and council appointed McLaren traffic engineers to provide expert traffic advice during the process. The proposal as put forward was ultimately accepted by CJP, McLaren and council. However, it was determined late in the process that right turn into the location must be considered. Council then required the provision of a nominated turnaround area as a result. Options were proposed and considered, and the council expert, in conjunction with council staff, determined that Ringwood Lane was the most appropriate location. CJP traffic engineers prepared a concept plan for this arrangement, which was included in the approved documents in the DA consent issued in December 2023. However, no specific condition requiring this turnaround to be constructed was included in the consent. CDS then developed detailed drawings from this concept plan and have lodged an application for a 138 approval for the works. This was submitted nearly 12 months ago. Since that time, the proposal and plans have gone to 3 separate traffic committee meetings. Updates and additional documentation have been provided in accordance with council review comments along the way. During that same time, the detailed design for the intersection itself has been approved and plans have been deemed suitable for the issue of a 138 approval. Works have been completed. This work provides for a much safer and practical arrangement than was previously in place for the property entries. Council staff have advised, however, that the final 138 certificate to enable a subdivision certificate application to be lodged cannot be provided until such time as the turnaround is constructed. Council staff have also made it clear that they will not allow the works to be bonded to allow for the release of a subdivision certificate. As is noted in the agenda, the council staff, as well as CJP and McLaren, support the construction of the turnaround area in Ringwood Lane. However, selected members of the local traffic committee do not. As a professional engineer involved in the design of the turnaround area, we support council approval for the resolution proposing the agenda for the construction of the turning head to proceed. We note that the intersection works where the subdivision road meets Bundanoon Road have already been completed as per the approval for the works, including the raised traffic island and no right turn arrangement is now in place. Council's external consultant, traffic expert McLaren, and council were of the opinion that a formalised turnaround area is required in this case. We would say that the right turn into the site would be the least frequent turning movement into the subdivision, noting that the larger townships of Mossvale, Burradoo, Barrel are all located to the north of the site. If council determines it cannot support the construction of the turnaround, then we will respectfully request that a clear path forward should be provided to the owners of 267 Bundanoon Road. One of the alternatives must be considered and timely decisions made by council as to how this can be progressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Did councillors have any questions? Councillor Russell.
Were you part of the, thank you for your explanation, were you part of the mediation that occurred with neighbours? Okay. All right. So at any stage when that no right-hand turn was placed there, did anyone think about the impact that it might have on the surrounding properties who didn't have a complete traffic solution at that point? Well, the residents.
I think we're getting off.
No,
topic of
I just
questions.
wanted to know if that was considered in that
Okay.
discussion when you were formulating the engineer works. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We'll have Jason Taylor next, is speaking against the recommendation in item 8.27.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today regarding the proposed U-turn bay in Ringwood Lane. I will speak to oppose the proposal and put forward objections from the collective residents of Ringwood Lane who are all affected by this proposal but unable to speak today. This proposal is a poorly thought through solution resulting from a property development for which the residents of Ringwood Lane were not consulted and where the developer now intends to push a traffic problem they created onto the residents of Ringwood Lane. This is clearly an attempt to reduce their development costs and maximise their profits at our expense. I also note that this matter has come to Council after it was objected to at previous traffic committees, where it was opposed by Ringwood Lane residents, Transport for New South Wales Police and the member for Goulburn. I wish to highlight the following points in our objection. At night time, it will impact the surrounding houses with traffic lights shining into bedroom windows. This is not fair to existing dwellings, in particular those on the corner of Bundanoon Road and Ringwood Lane. The entrance into Ringwood Lane is narrow and there will be insufficient room for cars to approach. Multiple cars waiting to use the U-turn bay will be required to queue back onto Bundanoon Road, which remains an 80km/h zone on a difficult bend. The speed of cars coming from the bridge coming over the bridge is 80km/h. This poses a significant increase in accident risk. The entrance of Ringwood Lane is narrow, and entering Ringwood Lane at 80km/h is also a significant risk. This will be amplified by the increased traffic using the U-turn bay, who may be unfamiliar with that area of the road. Over the past few months, the residents and trucks involved in the development are currently turning right from Bundanoon Road without any problem. This brings into question the likelihood of compliance. Why would they stop doing this when the Ringwood Lane turnaround bay is created? Cars exiting out of Ringwood Lane will be turning right and crossing onto Bundanoon Road immediately before the railway bridge. This will require a right turn from Ringwood Lane into the 80km/h zone on Bundanoon Road. If minimising a right turn across Bundanoon Road is the aim of the proposal, all that is done is to relocate the right turn from one side of the bridge to the other with no improvement to safety. The additional traffic coming back across the bridge towards the new subdivision increases traffic approaching Ringwood Road, causing an increased risk of accidents for cars turning right from Ringwood Road onto Bundanoon Road. The U-turn bay will also adversely impact the rural nature of Ringwood Lane. It will greatly reduce pedestrian access along Ringwood Lane, as the U-turn bay will eat into the roadside verge currently used by pedestrians. This area of Ringwood Lane is a known wombat habitat. Local residents are familiar with this and the need to be careful. This construction will impact the wombat population and reduce their habitat and increase likelihood of wildlife fatalities. The construction of the U-turn bay will require extensive excavation and retaining, which will damage surrounding trees and power infrastructure. I would like to propose the following alternative solutions, which seem to be missed by the engineers when they went down this single line of solution to their problem. A roundabout at the entrance to the subdivision would be a more appropriate solution. It would avoid cars travelling across the bridge into Ringwood Lane, then back over the bridge. with the resultant reduction in non-compliance. This roundabout would also increase the safety of cars entering and exiting Ringwood Road, as a right turn from Ringwood Road over the train bridge is currently challenging. A right turn bay from Bundanoon Road to the subdivision is the preferred option and would be more used by those new residents as it is currently being done at the moment. Lastly, an alternative U-turn bay in Ringwood Road of a similar design and construction to the proposal for Ringwood Lane. It would be closer to the development and therefore less likely for non-compliance. Also, traffic coming from Ringwood Road is already slowing down to a stop at the Bundanoon Road intersection and reduce the likelihood of collisions there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Did councillors have any questions? Thank you. We now have Peter Cameron speaking for the recommendation in item 9.2. Sorry, is it? Okay, sorry. Apologies, I didn't have your name fully highlighted.
It's all right. So my name is Peter Cameron Thomas, as you know now. I'm from 18 Old Wingelow Road in Bundanoon, and speaking to the item reinstatement of prayer to the Code of Meeting Practice. I'm the interim pastor of Barrel Baptist Church, and I'm speaking on behalf of the collective of all the churches in the Highlands. And I'm very happy to affirm the proposition that prayer be reinstated at the council meetings. I had the privilege for several years of coming and doing that, and always felt it was a dignified and appropriate commencement to council sessions. Christian prayer has long been a cornerstone of our society, and it should remain so. Christianity is a pillar of our heritage. Christian faith isn't confined to a few people attending services on a Sunday morning. According to the ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics, 40% of people in the Southern Highlands identify as Christian, and nationally, over 50% of Indigenous Australians identify as Christian. So it's a big proportion of our local community and national community. Furthermore, Christianity has deeply shaped Australia and its institutions, particularly our hospitals, schools, justice system, and even government. They're all based on biblical truth. John S. Dickerson, in his book, Jesus Skeptic, a journalist, explores the credibility and impact of Christianity, highlights how Christianity founded universities, advanced literacy, established modern science, fought for women's rights, abolished slavery. Christianity has been a driving force for justice, education, and healthcare. Christianity continues to play a huge role in our community these days. Organisations such as Salvation Army, Anglicare, Vinnie's, Argyle Housing, etc. provide vital social services, often filling gaps in government services. Many of the churches have their own independent services too. For example, Highlands Christian Church, they have soul warmers. C3 Church, Destiny Church has the Cares Coffee Hub and Soup Kitchen. Uniting Church has the food pantry, and on and on. There's many of them. I'm personally involved in a thing called the Lydia Project, which is a representation of a number of churches who support the poor and homeless with food, clothing, and housing resources. And we produced a comprehensive resource document that identifies where food, clothing, accommodation, personal services, even like showers, financial advice, and services can be accessed. My parents-in-law, one of whom is in dementia, have been enormously supported through the Baptist Care services and chaplains. And just this morning, I heard that prayer in the Goulburn jail is a regular thing. There's apparently 40 inmates who meet regularly for prayer. So it's not limited to just the old church buildings on a Sunday morning. And I'm not suggesting that this is a jail or that, but if they're doing it in the jail, they could be doing it here. Christianity is also growing among younger generations. Contrary to belief that Christian faith is fading or declining, a Barna report indicates rapidly increasing engagement among young people in the USA and also here in Australia. The ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics, says that 30.6% of millennials, that's people ages 25 to 39, identify as a Christian. That's about a third, obviously. And Generation Z, that's ages who are only aged 10 to 24, 39% of them identify as Christian. So there's about a 10% increase in that decade. The power of prayer is private and public. Like meditation, it brings peace, humility, and perspective. It reminds us that we're part of something greater, offering wisdom beyond our human understanding, and recognizing that we're not as self-enabling and self-sustaining and self-capable as we often think we are. On a broader front, religion generally is the biggest factor in the world we live in today, sadly often for bad reasons as well as good. But the point is, religion is not going away. And so to ignore it would be, in the old cliche, to be on the wrong side of history. Whether you are a person of faith yourself or not, you have walking beside you in this community a whole community of faith in all its different expressions, and who desire to provide you the opportunity of partnership. My hope and prayer for this generation and for the sake of my grandchildren is that this council would reinstate prayer as a meaningful and appropriate part of its identity. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. We'll just circle back round. Is Danny Kent, did he end up coming? Oh, here he is. On behalf of Richard Gell, we'll be speaking for part of the recommendation in item 8.21. Sorry, I'll just get you to throw your microphone on there. Just the button in front. There you go.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for accommodating me, and apologies I was a little late. My name's Danny Kent. I represent one of 4 families that currently own a piece of land at 129 Merrygang Street, Bowral. I'm here today to speak on behalf of all our landowners relating item 8.21, which relates to a request to reduce an easement in favour of council that currently affects the property. In summary, we are in favour of the motion that council do approve the request to reduce the easement. However, we are not in favour of the recommendation that council request compensation within 10% of a range that council has been advised on by a valuer. We believe there is additional information which should be considered, including information that we've provided in terms of valuation and costings that have been provided to council. I believe council has received as confidential information. By background, we purchased this lot in April 2022. We actually purchased this lot and the neighbouring lot together. Both of those lots were R3 zone, and we had originally intended to undertake a development that would encompass both those properties. Subsequently, we made a decision not to proceed with that after getting some feedback from council, and we've retraded and resold the property at 119 Merrygang. So we are now the owner of the vacant lot that sits next door to that at 129. We have our cost to acquire 129 is roughly $1 million between the overall purchase price we paid, what we sold the neighbouring property for, and some costs we've incurred to date. Shortly after we bought the property, we engaged with council's engineering assets and property team regarding stormwater infrastructure that currently exists on the site. The stormwater infrastructure comprises a earth sort of channel across the site. It's not formalised, and it's largely an open flow that runs from one end of the property at Ivy Street to a pit at Merrygang Street. The proposal that we've run through council's engineering team and work extensively on them with them on is a proposal to put a new underground piped connection of the stormwater from Ivy Street to Merrygang Street, and we intend to locate that along the eastern edge of our property. We understand that council's technical team are comfortable with the design. We've done flood studies and flow studies and a whole bunch of engineering work to satisfy council with that arrangement. I believe they're supportive of the new infrastructure as an upgrade to what exists at the moment. The further request that we've made of council is that if we are to do that, that the stormwater easement, in which this infrastructure will sit, is reduced to 3 metres of width, which is the standard stormwater easement that council requires, and that we align that with the new infrastructure. Currently, that easement is actually 20 metres wide and covers the entire property. And in our view, it's grossly excessive for what is actually needed to contain the infrastructure that we're proposing. It's always been our proposal that we would fund all of those works as part of redeveloping the block and looking to deliver dwellings on that block, and that we would pay for that, and then we would dedicate those stormwater assets back to council once they were complete. We prepared a new easement document outlining the new easement, which we provided to council, and again, we understand that that's in an acceptable form and agreed. We were advised late last year that the matter would be coming to council early this year for endorsement, which we were very excited about. In mid-January, however, we were contacted and told that we needed to make an offer of compensation to council because council were being asked to reduce the easement. It's always been our understanding and our intention going through this that spending the money to build new stormwater and dedicating that back to council was effectively our compensation. In our view, the easement is far bigger than council actually needs and is not really providing any benefit to the community or to council outside of housing the stormwater infrastructure, and so that the 3 metre easement would now be adequate and council would receive upgraded new stormwater connection that's formalised and better able to conduct the flows from Ivy Street to Merrygang Street. Council's feedback was that the change in easement will add to the value of our land, and that because of that, council feels that they should participate in some of the value uplift. Council sought independent valuation advice on what that uplift is and what proportion of that uplift should be dedicated back to council. We've done our own advice on that, and the numbers are quite different. And we also have provided the costings now of what we're going to have to spend to build the new infrastructure. So in short, we would like council to, we think council should support the new infrastructure and the modification of the easement, but we would like council to reconsider the level of compensation for which it is seeking. We have made a offer without prejudice as of yesterday as an attempt to settle the matter. We prefer to go there on that than any other legal paths which may be available to us. And we ask that council consider the motion in that light. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any questions? Thank you. That's it, isn't it? Yep. We'll have about a 15-minute break. We'll reconvene at 3:45.